Welcome back to the deep dive. Our mission today is really laser focused. We're looking at transforming that advanced English proficiency into absolute undeniable mastery.
Hmm.
If you're joining us, we've probably already conquered that steep climb to C1. You're fluent, you can communicate effectively in pretty much any situation.
Right.
But now you're aiming for that ultimate peak, right? That C2 proficiency, the
Right.
level that, unlocks the highest band scores on those big exams like IELTS, TOEFL, or the Cambridge Proficiency Exam, the CPE.
That's right. And that shift from C1 to C2, it's
Hmm.
it's subtle, but it's really profound.
And in what way?
Well, it's the difference between speaking like a highly competent, a near native user,
Hmm.
and speaking like a truly sophisticated master of the language.
Okay.
Our source material for this, a curated guide to essential C2 vocabulary, it really calls this toolkit your greatest weapon.
I like that greatest weapon.
Yeah, it's not just about knowing more words. It's about wielding the most precise tool for the job.
I really appreciate that emphasis on precision. Because we're not just looking for synonyms that mean big or, bad.
No, far from it.
We're searching for words that perfectly capture a specific intensity or a specific degree of formality or a specific type of action. And the list we have today is, well, it's focused. We've got 28 powerful C2 words, and they all begin with the letter A.
And our mission here is more than just running through definitions. We need to show how these words function as tools of persuasion, clarity, and sophistication.
Right.
For you, the listener, aiming for a band 8 or 9 on IELTS, mastering this kind of vocabulary is, well, it's mandatory.
It's non-negotiable.
Absolutely. It demonstrates a complete command over the language's nuances. It lets you read the most challenging academic texts and, maybe more critically, express complex ideas back out into the world fluently, eloquently, and with the exact register that's required.
That distinction you just made, register and nuance, that is so key. We've noticed that if we just read them all alphabetically, they just kind of blend together.
They do. It becomes a blur.
So we've grouped these 28 words by theme and by usage, which should hopefully help them stick, not just as definitions, but as conceptual tools in your mind.
An excellent approach. We're actually starting with a massive cluster that's defined by the prefix ab,
AB.
ab. These words, whether they're verbs or adjectives, they often deal with intense negative states, a complete withdrawal from something, or a significant reduction in force or intensity.
Okay, so let's unpack this theme of intense negativity. When you're writing a C2 essay or you're speaking in a formal exam setting, you can't just rely on, I dislike that very much.
Oh, definitely not.
You need vocabulary that signals a deep-seated, often moral objection. So let's start with the first one on our list, abhor.
Right, abhor. It means to strongly hate or to regard something with intense disgust. The real power of abhor lies in its moral weight.
Moral weight.
Yeah. It is far stronger than just hate or detest because it often implies this repulsion that's based on principle. You don't abhor getting stuck in traffic.
Right, you're annoyed by that.
You're annoyed. You abhor cruelty or injustice or, institutional corruption. And the etymology is interesting, too. It comes from the Latin abhorrer,
Which can...
to shrink back from something. So it suggests a physical and a moral recoiling.
So if I were to use it in a professional context, maybe reporting on a political scandal, I'm signaling that the behavior I'm describing is beyond just bad judgment. It's fundamentally reprehensible.
Exactly. But you've touched on a key point there. How do you use a word like this in a setting where you have to remain objective, like an academic paper?
Yeah, that's the danger zone, isn't it, for this level of vocabulary?
It is. In a purely objective analysis, you might use the adjective form, abhorrent, to describe the reaction of a population, rather than stating your own personal judgment.
Okay.
For instance, the protesters reacted strongly to the policy, finding its implementation abhorrent.
Yeah.
You see, you're reporting the intensity of the disgust. You're not endorsing it yourself.
So you're attributing the feeling.
Precisely. And correctly identifying that the register is highly formal and emotionally charged is just crucial for C2 writing.
Okay, that makes sense. Let's move to a word that describes not the feeling itself, but the condition of misery. The word is abject.
Abject, yes. It's an adjective, and it means extremely bad, miserable, or hopeless. Like abhor, it conveys a sense of totality.
Totality.
When we talk about abject conditions, we mean the lowest, most complete form of that negative state. The most common collocations you'll hear are abject poverty or abject failure.
So you're describing a state of complete and utter defeat, or lack.
You've got it. I often see C1 students use words like terrible, or very poor when they really mean abject.
Right, but abject doesn't just mean the failure was big, does it? It means the failure resulted in a kind of hopelessness.
Exactly. An ordinary mistake might lead to poor results. An abject failure means the project completely collapsed and demonstrated a profound incompetence. It's a judgment of totality.
Can you give me an example?
Sure. Consider the sentence. The candidate's initial performance was an abject failure that left the campaign staff in despair. That single adjective, abject, it transforms the entire mood and the level of critique in that sentence.
Wow, it really does. It paints a much more vivid picture. Okay, before we leave this deep, negative, emotional zone, there's one more verb here. Abash.
Abash. It's an active verb. To make someone feel shy, embarrassed, or uncomfortable.
So it's more nuanced than just embarrassing someone.
It is. It implies being suddenly caught off guard, causing this acute self-consciousness or confusion. A highly technical legal question might abash a witness who thought they were completely prepared.
So it's about that surprise element.
Surprise and the resulting confusion. It's actually often used in the passive voice. He was abashed by the applause. It focuses on that sudden mental disruption that leads to visible shame or confusion.
Okay, let's shift gears a little. We're moving on to the second subset of this AB theme. We have words related to giving up, sacrifice, and withdrawal.
Right, and all of these signal a deliberate, serious self-control or relinquishing some kind of high-level power.
We're starting with a highly formal one,
Yeah.
abnegate.
Yes, abnegate. It means to give up something, especially comfort or desire. This word is really reserved for situations of high moral or ethical resolve.
It's an act of conscious self-denial.
Conscious self-denial. It comes from the Latin abnegar, which means to deny. A politician might abnegate their personal ambitions for the greater good of their party. It's a voluntary, intentional, and often quite a severe sacrifice. You wouldn't use it for, skipping dessert.
So if I just stop eating chocolate, I'm showing discipline.
Right.
But if I give up all personal comfort and luxury to devote my entire life to a humanitarian cause, that's closer to abnegation.
Precisely. If you're writing a philosophical or socio-political essay, abnegation is the C2 term for discussing that kind of profound moral commitment. A simpler synonym like renounce or forego, it just lacks that level of intense ethical self-sacrifice.
And closely related, but maybe a bit more common in behavioral contexts, is the adjective abstinent.
Abstinent, yes. It means avoiding something, especially food, drink, or habits. While it shares that root concept of denial, abstinent is applied to specific, often habitual behaviors.
It signifies a chosen discipline, a proactive avoidance.
That's a great way to put it. Generally in the realms of health, diet, or vice. The noun form, abstinence, is much more widely known, of course, but using the adjective abstinent in a formal text really demonstrates an awareness of register.
Okay, that's a good tip. Now, for the word that's reserved almost exclusively for sovereign power, abdicate.
Abdicate. To give up responsibility, power, or duty. This implies a voluntary surrender of authority.
Like a king or queen.
Exactly. While it famously refers to monarchs abdicating thrones, at a C2 level, you can and should apply it metaphorically to other serious responsibilities.
For example,
You could say, the government was criticized for abdicating its duty to protect public health.
I see the intensity scale here. Abnegate is moral sacrifice. Abstinent is behavioral discipline. And abdicate is the surrender of formal, high-level authority or responsibility.
You've nailed it. That level of differentiation is exactly what IELTS examiners are looking for.
It's a test of precision.
Absolutely. The C2 test is often checking whether you can match the verb's formality and its intensity to the gravity of the context. You have to choose the word that conveys the right kind of giving up.
Let's look at two final ab words in this group. These ones deal with shifting or waning states. First up, abate.
Abate. It means to become weaker, smaller, or less intense. This word is fantastic because it always implies a gradual reduction of force or volume or severity.
So it's not a sudden stop.
No, it's a process. It's used widely in legal, scientific, and even meteorological contexts. A court might abate a lawsuit. A doctor might monitor if a patient's symptoms abate. The wind abated after the storm. It emphasizes that dynamic process of reduction.
It provides a temporal component, a sense of time, that simpler words like stop or lessen just don't have.
That's the key.
And finally, we're circling back to negative intensity for the last time in this family of words. Abysmal.
Abysmal. It means extremely bad or very poor. If abject described a state of hopelessness, abysmal describes a shocking lack of quality or competence.
So it's from abyss, right? Like a bottomless pit of badness.
Exactly, it suggests a depth of failure. If you're reviewing a policy or critiquing a performance, abysmal is your essential C2 upgrade for the word terrible.
Okay, let's try a quick C1 to C2 transformation using abysmal. A C1 speaker might say, the results of the project were very bad, and the critics were angry.
Right, a C2 speaker could transform that to, the project delivered abysmal results, provoking an acrimonious response from critics.
Wow.
You instantly increase the sophistication level, and you convey a much greater depth of both the failure and the conflict just by using abysmal.
Okay, that's a powerful demonstration. So, before we move on, we have a few more ab words that are less about emotion and more about intellect and concepts.
Yes, exactly. We're sort of transitioning now from emotional intensity to more intellectual and categorical terms. These are words you absolutely need to describe theory, exceptions, and total states.
Right, the kind of language that's fundamental for high-level academic discourse.
Couldn't have said it better.
So let's start with deviation. The word is aberration.
An aberration. It's something unusual or different from what is normal. The crucial aspect here is context. Aberration is widely used in technical fields, scientific, statistical, or behavioral, to describe a temporary departure from an expected standard.
So it implies the deviation is an exception, not the new rule.
Precisely. A slight rise in crime rates for 1 month might be described as a statistical aberration rather than a new long-term trend.
So it's distinct from just a simple exception. An aberration carries the weight of having deviated from some kind of scientifically or historically validated norm.
Exactly. And it often suggests a temporary condition. If we see unusual behavior from a political party, calling it a behavioral aberration implies that we expect them to return to their standard conduct.
Which is a powerful implicit statement in C2 writing.
A very powerful statement.
And paired with aberration on our list is abortive.
Abortive. It means unsuccessful or failing to achieve a result, but specifically one that has been cut short.
Okay, so the core meaning is derived from ending prematurely.
You've got it. If a new business venture fails before it even launches its product, that's an abortive venture. It distinguishes itself from a simple failure because it focuses on the premature termination of the attempt.
An abortive peace negotiation, for example, would be one that broke down before they even got to the substantive issues.
Exactly right. That sense of being cut short is critical for describing political or military efforts.
Now let's tackle the really conceptual and abstract terms, the language of theory. We have the word abstract.
Abstract. It's defined as being based on ideas or theory, not physical reality. This word is just foundational for academic thought. When you're writing advanced essays, you have to be able to move fluidly between concrete evidence, statistics, case studies, and abstract concepts like justice or liberty or phenomenology. Using the word abstract correctly shows your ability to categorize and manipulate non-concrete concepts.
It's the essential tool for establishing the theoretical framework of any argument. And when those abstract ideas get truly overwhelming, they become abstruse.
Yes, abstruse. It means very difficult to understand. This is a word of a very specific register.
How so?
It's specifically used when describing complex, specialized, or technical subjects that are hard for even an expert to grasp, let alone the average person. The etymology is lovely. It comes from the Latin abstruder,
Which can
to thrust away or to hide. Abstruse content is conceptually hidden or difficult to access.
That's a fantastic distinction. So if a poorly written government memo is difficult to understand, I would call that unclear.
Right.
But if I'm reading a paper on quantum field theory and it is inherently complex and specialized, I would call that abstruse.
Absolutely. Abstruse is almost a compliment to the subject's complexity, not a criticism of the writer's clarity. If you say a philosopher's work is abstruse, you're signaling its inherent density and specialization.
You're implying that only a highly dedicated or specialized reader can fully engage with it.
That's it.
Okay, finally, let's wrap up this whole ab section with two terms that denote final judgments or freedoms. Absolve and absolute.
Absolve. It means to free someone from blame, guilt, or responsibility. This word carries immense moral and legal weight.
It sounds very official.
It is. Using absolve implies that the speaker or the system, be it legal, moral, religious, holds the authority to clear the record. It's a formal declaration. If you're reporting on a corruption inquiry, saying the official was let off the hook is C1,
And the C2 version.
stating they were formally absolved of all charges. That phrasing emphasizes the authoritative clearance they received.
And contrasting with that specific relief, we have the sweeping totality of absolute.
Absolute. It just means complete, total, or without limits. This adjective is crucial for amplifying certainty or scope in academic writing.
Instead of just saying very or completely.
Exactly. C1 writers often lean on very or completely. C2 writers use absolute. The collocations are wide-ranging. Absolute certainty, absolute necessity, absolute power.
And in the context of an exam.
In the context of the C2 exam, demonstrating that you understand how to use absolute to signify that totality, that uncompromised state, is key to achieving that high score.
Wow. That completes our deep dive into the words stemming from ab. We've built a powerful lexicon for describing negative states, complexity, sacrifice, resolution.
A lot to cover.
It is. But now we shift into the dynamics of human interaction and judgment. We're moving to the ACCI group, which seems to govern acclaim, conflict, and criticism.
That's right. The ACCI group is essential for describing the intricacies of social life, professional critique, and confrontation. These are words you'll need when you're discussing literature, political debate, or sophisticated analysis of power structures.
Let's begin on the positive side, though. Although even praise has its nuances, starting with accolade.
An accolade. It's praise, honor, or recognition. The formality of accolade cannot be overstated.
It's not just a compliment.
Not at all. It implies official, serious recognition, typically public and merit-based, like an award, a title, or a high honor bestowed for an achievement. It's a formalized award of merit, often reserved for intellectual, artistic, or professional accomplishments.
So you wouldn't give a child an accolade for tidying their room.
Exactly. A professor receives an accolade for decades of groundbreaking research.
It speaks to established merit. Now let's contrast that legitimate formal recognition with the next word, adulation.
Adulation. This is defined as excessive praise or admiration. This distinction is one of the most important C2 nuances you can learn.
So accolade is earned, formal praise.
And adulation is often undeserved, over the top, or fawning worship. And it carries a strong negative connotation.
It implies a loss of critical perspective on the part of the admirer.
That's it exactly. I see this constantly in political commentary.
Oh, yeah. If a journalist describes the supporter's reaction as adulation, they're subtly signaling that the relationship is, well, unhealthy, uncritical, maybe even a bit cult-like.
Precisely. If you're analyzing a public figure's popularity, using the word adulation immediately elevates your critique. It questions the depth and sincerity of the praise being offered, which is a key requirement for high-level analytical writing.
Okay, that's a sharp tool to have. Moving now from praise to confrontation, we have the verb accost.
Accost. It means to approach someone boldly or suddenly, and typically with an aggressive or demanding intent. This is not a casual interaction.
Not a friendly hello.
Definitely not. If a person is accosted, it implies they were approached uninvited and forcefully, perhaps physically or verbally demanding attention. The register is usually journalistic or narrative, used to describe these sudden, forceful encounters.
Like, the reporter accosted the CEO outside the courtroom, demanding answers about the financial scandal.
Perfect example. The key isn't just the surprise of the approach, but the implied confrontation that's inherent in it.
And the typical response to that kind of pressure, especially in a diplomatic setting, is often our next word, acquiesce.
Acquiesce. To accept something without arguing. To yield. This is an absolutely critical C2 word for describing reluctant acceptance or passive agreement.
So it's not a happy agreement.
No. It strongly signals that the compliance is grudging. The individual or entity is giving in, often to avoid greater conflict or pressure, but their internal resistance remains.
So if a government acquiesces to international pressure, it means they're doing so under duress. They didn't want to agree.
Exactly. It reveals a political weakness that simpler words like agreed or complied completely fail to capture. That's the subtlety we need for a top score. Acquiesce is a word for strategic surrender, not happy cooperation. It shows the reader that you understand the power dynamics at play.
Okay. Now, let's delve into sharpness, the linguistic and sensory cutting edge. We have three interconnected words here, acrid, acerbic, and acrimonious. Let's start with the sensory one.
Acrid. Acrid. It means sharp, bitter, or unpleasant, and it applies primarily to smell or taste, but sometimes tone. The consistent element is a harsh, biting unpleasantness that just assaults the senses.
It's a very physical word.
Very. It's highly versatile. The acrid smell of sulfur, the acrid smoke from a chemical fire, or an acrid aftertaste. While it can describe a tone, it is most powerful when describing tangible, sensory harshness.
So if acrid is sensory harshness, then acerbic is purely linguistic harshness.
Correct. Acerbic means sharp, harsh, or biting in speech or tone. This is exclusively a descriptor for communication style.
An acerbic wit.
Exactly. An acerbic wit is intelligent, incisive, and cutting. It's often intended to wound or to strongly critique. If a literary critic writes an acerbic review, you know it's going to be clever, highly articulate, but extremely damaging.
I often think of a seasoned political commentator whose sharp analysis is delivered with an acerbic edge. It conveys their intelligence while also signaling their cutting, critical nature.
And when those acerbic comments are exchanged repeatedly over a long period of time, the environment or the relationship itself becomes acrimonious.
Ah, the final step.
Yes. Acrimonious means angry, bitter, and full of conflict. This word describes the atmosphere of deep, prolonged hostility. We talk about acrimonious relationships, acrimonious negotiations, or acrimonious divorce proceedings.
So we have a really clear spectrum of sharpness here. Acrid for the harsh smell or taste, acerbic for the harsh language,
Right.
and acrimonious for the prolonged bitterness of the relationship itself.
These are magnificent tools for describing conflict dynamics in formal writing.
They allow you to move beyond that C1 vocabulary of angry and bad smell into specialized contextual descriptors that really enhance your authority as a writer.
Which brings us to our final section. We're focusing on intellectual ability, firm conviction, and professional action.
Yes, we're shifting now to words that define superior intellectual capacity, firm resolve, and how we formally manage or deal with complex problems. This is the vocabulary of the critical thinker and the professional. Okay, let's start with intellectual and practical skill, beginning with acumen.
Acumen. It's a noun. It means the ability to think clearly and make good decisions, often in a specific field.
So it's not just being smart.
No, it's synonymous with sharp practical judgment and quick insight. It's not just raw intelligence, but intelligence applied effectively. The most essential collocations are in professional fields: financial acumen, political acumen, strategic acumen.
So a C2 essay discussing the qualities of a successful leader would have to employ acumen.
It would, to demonstrate sophistication in describing superior judgment. It implies a swift, decisive insight that translates directly to smart action.
Right next to that on our list is the multifaceted adjective acute.
Acute. It means very strong, sharp, or intense. Its primary use is to signify high severity or a highly developed sensitivity.
You hear it in medicine a lot, acute pain.
Right. We use it for senses, acute vision, acute hearing. We use it for problems, an acute water shortage, an acute housing crisis, and yes, for pain. When it's used intellectually, an acute observation is one that is exceptionally insightful and penetrating.
I often see candidates misuse acute when they simply mean important. The C2 nuance is that it implies a sharp severity or intensity, not just general significance.
Right, precisely. An important problem is C1. An acute problem signals that the issue is intense, potentially severe, and requires immediate attention because of its sharpness.
Okay, that clarifies it. And wrapping up this skill trio is the word adroit.
Adroit. It's defined as skillful, clever, and confident in action or speech. This word implies a mental agility combined with a physical or practical finesse.
So it describes someone who handles situations with smoothness and cleverness.
Yes. An adroit maneuver in a negotiation shows not only intelligence but also practice skill and confidence. It's often used to describe diplomatic or social handling. An adroit politician handled the difficult questions smoothly.
That combination of mental flexibility and practical skill makes adroit far superior to just clever or skilled.
It implies a polished, natural competence.
Okay, let's turn to conviction and support, starting with adamant.
Adamant. It means very firm and unwilling to change. This is a powerful adjective that describes an unwavering resolve or refusal.
Immovable.
Completely immovable and determined. If someone is adamant about a position, the strength of this word enhances any description of conviction, whether it's positive or negative. A witness might remain adamant that they saw an incident despite aggressive cross-examination.
So if you're preparing for these high-stakes exams, you must be adamant about your study schedule.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh.
And if you support an idea adamantly, you become an adherent.
Ah, the noun form.
Yes, an adherent is a highly formal noun for someone who strongly supports or follows something. This word is really reserved for contexts involving systems, ideologies, or beliefs.
So not just a fan of a sports team.
No. An adherent of a philosophical school, an adherent of a strict diet, or an adherent of a specific political doctrine. It denotes a deep loyalty and an active following of a system, making it much more formal than simply supporter or follower.
Okay, we have two crucial verbs left, rounding out our 28. They deal with how we formally act in a professional capacity. First, the surprisingly important C2 verb, address.
The C2 usage of the verb address is to deal with or focus on a problem or issue. This is absolutely crucial for formal essay writing. C1 students constantly use deal with or talk about.
And a C2 student.
The C2 student writes, "The paper successfully addresses the primary regulatory failure."
It's the perfect example of how C2 vocabulary elevates the register without dramatically changing the core meaning. So a C1 student says, the government needs to deal with the funding gap.
Whereas the C2 candidate writes, "The government must address the funding gap." That shift from a simple phrasal verb to a formal verb demonstrates a mastery of register. The nuance is formality, and it signals that you're engaging with the topic on a high level of intellectual engagement.
Okay, last one, admonish.
Admonish. It means to warn or advise someone seriously, and it often carries a slight tone of disapproval or stern correction.
So it's a formal warning.
A formal, structured warning. It is not a shout or a fit of anger. It's controlled, constructive, but serious criticism. A board member might admonish the CEO for financial mismanagement. It's the formal action taken by an authority figure to correct behavior.
And that's 28. We've covered 28 powerful, highly specific terms, all starting with A. It just demonstrates the depth available in just one tiny corner of the English lexicon. What really stands out to me is how this is all pushing the learner to differentiate based on intensity and formality.
That is the core takeaway. This vocabulary transforms the writer from someone who just conveys information, that's C1, to someone who conveys precise meaning and register, that's C2.
Oh, right.
These words are, frankly, non-negotiable for anyone seeking mastery because they demonstrate near-native command, and they enable truly sophisticated expression in both speech and writing.
That's the real nugget of knowledge here, isn't it? These words actively transform you from a passive learner who just understands complex English to a confident communicator who actively produces complex English.
And for immediate application, I'd say take the challenge that our source material implies.
Yeah.
Next time you sit down to write, audit your use of simple, common synonyms. How often do you use the word very or bad?
I probably use them a lot.
We all do. So challenge yourself to replace, say, 5 instances of simple negative judgment with the C2 term we discussed today, be it abysmal or acrimonious.
So by forcing yourself to substitute "I hated the movie" with "I abhorred the movie," or "the results were very poor" with the results were abysmal, you're consciously integrating that formality and intensity that's required at the C2 level.
And that shift forces you to engage not just with the definition, but with the necessary context and register. It's the difference between merely navigating the language and truly mastering it. And that, I think, is a concept worth carrying into every single piece of communication you create.
That's definitely something to mull over and apply immediately. Until our next deep dive, keep aiming for that absolute mastery.